How's that saying go? The sword is mightier than the shield? Close enough. And, well, that might actually be true. S.W.O.R.D is the new hip organization in the MCU that everyone is talking about. But what exactly does this sharply named group actually want to do? Join us today as we talk about the history of S.W.O.R.D in the MCU, the already shocking changes it made from the comics, and what it means for the rest of WandaVision and the MCU's future. Let's get into this right now. So, amidst all the reality-bending shenanigans in WandaVision, the show managed to drop a pretty big bombshell in regards to S.W.O.R.D. The organization has actually been around for years. For some reason, I thought the Spider-Man Far From Home post-credit scene with Nick Fury chilling in space while building a new space station was him specifically establishing the organization. It kind of made sense, right? After Thanos helped dustpan sales skyrocket thanks to his snap, Fury would reappear and decide that Earth needs a new organization to make sure something like that never happens again. But actually, we found out the organization has been around since the days of Captain Marvel, and it was formed by a friendly face. S.W.O.R.D in the MCU stands for Sentient Weapon Observation Response Division, and as it turns out, was founded by Captain Maria Rambeau after the events of Captain Marvel. Their mission is to protect Earth from sentient weapons, and as much as it surprised me to find out they've been here basically the whole time, it does make sense. Do you really think Maria Rambeau would have just sat on her hands after the events of Captain Marvel? No, she grabbed the Flurkin by the horns and got to work, creating a secret organization that operated in the shadows. If you think about it, it makes Maria Rambeau very similar to Peggy Carter. It's still unclear just how much S.W.O.R.D and S.H.I.E.L.D. interacted with each other, but given the Nick Fury connection, chances are it had a little bit of overlap. But now the real question is, where have they been all this time? Earth's been threatened by both alien threats and sentient rogue AIs a bunch of times now, but we haven't heard a peep out of S.W.O.R.D until now. Were they dealing with other larger threats that we don't even know about? Were they helping the Avengers in small ways that we just couldn't see? Or maybe they just weren't focused on intergalactic threats and communications that much between the 90s and today. Yes, we know some light space travel was a part of their mission program before the snap, but if you look at their actual name in the MCU compared to the comics, you might get an idea of what they've been up to for the last 20-ish years or so. In the comics, S.W.O.R.D stands for Sentient World Observation and Response Department. You hear that name and you immediately think of aliens and intergalactic communication. Its main purpose was to deal with extraterrestrial threats to world security and basically act like a space-based counterpart to S.H.I.E.L.D. But things have been tweaked. They're usually key players in whatever Skrull story is being told, which makes a lot of sense. And while that very much might be the case going forward, especially with the upcoming Secret Invasion TV show we're getting, the elephant in the room is how the acronym is different now. WandaVision lets us know that their version of S.W.O.R.D stands for Sentient Weapon Observation Response Division. The key word there is the difference between world and weapon. This could mean a lot of different things. For one, the term sentient weapon makes the organization's observation of the WandaVision situation and their general desire to save Wanda and potentially Vision make a lot of sense. Vision is the very definition of a sentient weapon, and Wanda's powers are truly still an unknown. Good thing S.W.O.R.D is on the case. And most importantly, since S.W.O.R.D is the one running the show for the events of WandaVision, this could put them in an extremely important position going forward in the MCU. Because we all know the multiverse is on its way. More so than anything else, the multiverse will be the future of the MCU. Everything seems to be building toward it, and it really does start with WandaVision. Wherever Wanda is right now, it looks like that's going to be the basis for the MCU dipping its toe into the multiverse waters. I think that because Wanda is said to be a major part of Doctor Strange in the multiverse of madness. So the connection makes sense. It also means S.W.O.R.D will be the first division to interact with the multiverse shenanigans. Picture this. Say the end of WandaVision blows the roof off the multiverse. Our Earth is going to need an organization that knows the situation and is at least aware of some of the potential and power the multiverse holds. Monica Rambeau could start up a new division within the S.W.O.R.D umbrella that is very specifically dedicated to researching and exploring all the multiverse mayhem that's about to unfold. That would allow S.W.O.R.D to have two basic functions. The first one could be headed up by Nick Fury and be the intergalactic defense force he seems to desperately want, while the other branch could be run by Monica and focus on the multiverse entirely. I think that's a great setup overall, don't you? In a lot of ways, unless you were a big fan of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was a great show but the MCU just never really acknowledged properly. S.H.I.E.L.D. was an overall letdown. It was great in its early days, but then imploded in on itself thanks to Hydra and struggled to recover. But from its ashes, S.W.O.R.D can rise and be an actual functioning governmental agency within the MCU that can both help with space and multiverse threats. That doesn't sound that bad to me. Let's just hope at the end of the day S.W.O.R.D has been infiltrated by Hydra and working on a long con over the next 60 years, okay? I think that's a reasonable thing to ask for, right? Do you think Hydra even knows about S.W.O.R.D? I would imagine so, right? Maybe they just could never infiltrate them. Fingers crossed.